Germany, New Hampshire, Charlotte.
I know we have a couple Cincinnati folks in here. Oh, wonderful, Elliot.
So for those of us who are in Cincinnati or the Midwest, you know already that there's storm coming through. So if all of a sudden the screen goes dark, you will know that the storm took down power. We are very hopeful that our poetry energy keeps everything at bay, but that's just a heads up to what's happening here in the Midwest.
Yes. And we'll try to promptly get back into things via our phones, but if we do cut out, just know that it's because the storm might have knocked out our electricity. Okay, I think people will probably trickle in still, but I think I'll sort of welcome us into this session today. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. For those returning to Mindful Poetry, if you've attended a fall or winter gathering, it's great to see you. And if you're new to Mindful Poetry, welcome in. This is our 6th year of Mindful Poetry Moments. We do it annually during National Poetry Month in April. And yeah, my name is Patrick. I work as the content and event coordinator here at the Well, and I primarily manage Mindful Poetry Moments. Mindful Poetry is a core program of the Well. It's a sister program to our Mindful Music program, and it offers a mindful approach to poetry via the guidance of a variety of collaborators. So excitingly, this year we have Manuel Iris, who was the former Cincinnati Poet Laureate. He's the curator of this year's Mindful Poetry Moments. The concept for this gathering is pretty simple. For 1 hour, we will meditate, read a poem, discuss a poem, write poetry, and then share. And then at the very end of all these sessions throughout this month, you'll have an opportunity to submit your poetry that you've written during these gatherings for our annual compilation, which we usually have a book launch in August in Cincinnati. And additionally, we know that many people often like to be here but can't make the 3 to 4 p.m. commitment. So we do record these sessions. So if you would like to be edited out of this session in any way, please feel free to email me at patrick@thewell.world, and I can edit you out of this session today. Yeah, I think without further ado, I am going to introduce our mindfulness facilitator for today, which is the Well's founder and executive director, Stacy Sims. Stacy is a novelist, she's a playwright, she's an author of children's book, and an often poet, and is the wellspring of the Well. So without further ado, I'm gonna hand it off to Stacy Sims.
Thanks, Patrick. Super excited to be here. April's one of our favorite months, and Mindful Poetry, one of our sweetest programs. I also just want to throw another Mindful Poetry fact in, is that while we gather together as adults, this content is being shared with over 300 schools nationally. So they have daily access to these poems with various prompts and also writing and publishing opportunities. So we're joined by the next generation of imaginers and creators. So today, we're going to do a kind of a little embodiment wake up to really feel how amazing it is to be us, to live in these bodies, even in the most complicated times. So what we're going to do first is just do a little bit of wiggling, moving, remembering through some wiggles and movement that you actually have a body that perhaps has been sitting still for a while or standing for a while or just not being acknowledged. So wiggle around a little. And then I'm going to ask you to just rise your spine, soften your hands, soften your eyes, and take a few breaths and just notice. What does it feel like in your body, in this moment, to be you? You might notice the feeling of your clothing against your skin, your own breath moving in your body, thoughts, feelings. It's just a little baseline. So now we're going to open our eyes and we're going to do the equivalent of waking up, shaking up the energy in our body that might go dormant. So we're going to start by patting our heads. Patting your head, pinching your ears. If you've ever had acupuncture, you might get needles in your ears. So in Eastern traditions, the ears, the feet are portals to the rest of the body. Coming to the face, you can either tap, you can massage. If you live in the Ohio River Valley, it might get a little sinusy. And then you'll come to your throat and just kind of a little warm up of the throat. And then if you cup your hand around your throat and you go, ah. You feel that vibration? That vibration is medicine for the body. And we're going to wake up our heart and wake up our belly. We're going to wake up our heart and we're going to wake up our belly. Good. One arm out, pat down the arm, flip it, pat up. Down the outside, up the inside. Down, outside, up, inside. Opposite arm, down, outside, up, inside, down, outside, up, inside. And then however you can get to your legs, you're going to go down the front of your legs, up the back of the legs. Down the front of the legs, up the back of the legs. Good job. Lean over, pat on your back. Say, good job, human being, living in a weird time. Good job. Good. Now, fingers, toes, ankles, wrists, all the joints in our body are so happy when they get to move in all the ways they move. And then you just kind of knock into the webbing of the fingers. And then you gently just sort of pull on your fingers. It's like you're extending yourself a little beyond yourself, and then settle back in. And notice what feels different now. So the feeling of warmth, of tingling, of energy moving, that is all of the energy that we have within us to support our own well-being, to connect to others, connect to a broader universe. And that feeling of energy, we can, when we're not practicing playing with it, it can feel like anxiety, it can feel like stress. But this is us, ourself, with the sensation of amazement. Breath is amazing. Touch is amazing. Memory is amazing. And each individual human here is an amazing, pulsing, breathing, vibrant amazement amongst a multitude of experiences, wisdom, hope, and beautiful imagination and writing. Let's seal this practice. So rub palms, close ours, rub over your face, and come back into the space to get to receive the wisdom of Manuel Iris, Mexican-born American poet and our curator. He served as the poet laureate of the city of Cincinnati for 2 years, 2018 to 2020, and was inducted as a poet into the National System of Art Creators of Mexico. He's published 10 collections of poems in Spanish and English, and was most recently just awarded he's a recipient of the 2025 Ambrosio Prize alongside co-translator Kevin McHugh for his collection, The Whole Earth is a Garden of Monsters. We are so lucky to have you here. Manuel, I turn it over to you.
Hello. I think this is the first time that someone mentions that I work with a gathered community in Cincinnati. And I am very happy because I consider this a Cincinnati award, and I am very happy. And I am also very happy to see so many familiar faces. Um, Thank you for being here. Um, I am very happy to be with you. And I am very happy to be with you and also to talk about one of my favorite, if not maybe my favorite poet in the whole world, which is Wislawa Szymborska. If you have ever heard me talking about poetry, you have heard me mention Szymborska, because I think that she's one of the wisest and most talented minds that have ever uh, written poems ever. And I like the simplicity of her words and the depth of those simple words. She is very capable of talking about very complicated, uh, very difficult subjects with very simple words. And I believe that that is a superpower. Um, I want to be able to say very important things, but I want everybody to understand me. And she is capable of that. She is also a proof of how literary translation is important, because I do not speak Polish. So I have only read Szymborska in English and in Spanish. None of those is the language in which she wrote the poems. So what I get from her is poetry beyond, even beyond language. You know how people misquotes this phrase that poetry is what is lost in translation. I think that Szymborska and Homer and great poets, Russian poets, any poet that writes in a language that we don't speak is a proof that poetry is exactly the opposite of what is lost in translation. Poetry is what survives translation, because I believe that poetry is embodied in language, but is beyond language. So everything that Szymborska was to express is beyond language, even if it's embodied in it. In the same way that the beauty of dance is beyond the body, even if it's embodied in the body. You know, so I want to talk about this beautiful poem that is called Among the Multitudes. If we could see the poem on the screen so I can read it out loud. This poem talks about how are we individual and not. Among the Multitudes by Wislawa Szymborska. I am who I am, a coincidence no less unthinkable than any other. I would have different ancestors. I could have different ancestors, after all. I could have fluttered from another nest or crawled be scaled from another tree. Nature's wardrobe holds a fair supply of costumes. Spider, seagull, field mouse. Each fits perfectly right off and is dutifully worn into shreds. I didn't get a choice either, but I can't complain. I could have been someone much less separate. Someone from an anthill, shoal, a buzzing swarm, an inch of a landscape ruffled by the wind. Someone much less fortunate. Bread for my fur or Christmas dinner. Something swimming under a square of glass. A tree rooted to the ground as the fire draws near. A grass blade trampled by a stampede of incomprehensible events. A shady type whose darkness dazzles some. What if I prompted only fear, loathing, or pity? If he'd been born in the wrong tribe with all roads closed before me, fate has been kind to me thus far. I might never have been given the memory of happy moments. My yen for compassion might have been taken away. I might have been myself minus amazement. That is, someone completely different. This poem is, the way I see it, is full of wonder and amazement. The way that she's looking at single things that she mentions is almost the way that children look at things. You know, if you have been lucky enough to have a nephew, a kid, a student, a son, a daughter that runs to you with a leaf that is particular in its color, and they are beaming with this amazement because they can see the individual leaf among all of the leaves. And that is what poetry does. Poetry helps us to see this moon instead of seeing the moon. Poetry helps us to see this person and this fish and this moment and this second among the multitude of fish and seconds and leaves. So Szymborska is taking full consciousness of the randomness of the universe that she was born in the ways that she was born at. Sometimes I am right now teaching the Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka to my students. And I always tell them, isn't it difficult to find how to relate to this guy that wakes up and his body is not a human body anymore, but it's a gigantic insect? Well, if we think of it right like that, it is difficult to relate. But if we think that Gregor Samsa just opened his eyes and he was in a reality that he didn't choose and he has to move on, then we are all Gregor Samsa. One day we gain consciousness and we didn't choose the family we were born at, the body we were born at, the country, the social class, any of that. We just have to find or create the meaning out of it because we're going to play life with the cards that we were dealt. But in those cards, it is also amazement. One of those cards is the possibility of art. One of those cards is the possibility of beauty. One of those cards, not all of the cards are terrible. Most of the cards are beauty that has been given to us for free. And in this poem, she is talking about all of the possibilities. You know, not only the possibilities of being other beings, you know, being an animal, being something much less individual, being one of the fish of a school of fish, being one of the ants of an anthill, you know, being one of the blades of grass of a prairie. But we are individuals. And she's thankful for being Wislawa Szymborska. At the end, she talks about the possibility of poetry. She says, I could have been me without amazement. And that amazement is the possibility of poetry. If she wasn't amazed by the things that she sees, she wouldn't write these poems about this amazement, this joy that is a childlike joy, this amazement of the universe. It's like we are encountering everything as if we saw it for the first time. So without amazement, she wouldn't be her, even if she was born in the same family at the same time in the same body. If she was not able to be amazed by simple things, we wouldn't be reading this poem. She wouldn't have these thoughts. Nobody would have translated it. So when we think about all of the things that we are and that makes us us, it is not only all of the um, crossroads of class and sex and race, but it is also all of the divine things that makes us us. Our amazement, our curiosity, our yearning for beauty, our looking for meaning. And then while we look for meaning, we know that we are actually creating the meaning that we look for. So she is confessing who she is, but is very aware that she is one among a multitude. Because we do go out, and if we zoom out and we see us, we do look maybe like an anthill. We do look maybe like a school of fish. But each one of us is here as an individual. And even though we all read the same poem, we all read a different poem because we are the sounding voice of the breath of Wislawa Szymborska. Because this poem is going to remind us, each one of us individually, of different moments of our life, of different moments of hope and sadness and beauty and of happiness, I hope. Each one of us was a child, and we were all different. And each one of us still is the child that we used to be. That kid is still there, looking with wonder at what is in there. I would like to turn this for a couple of minutes into a conversation. I would like to hear, what do you see in this poem? What is this poem telling you? These are things that the poem has told me, but that is just one reading. Now we can remove the poem. We don't need it there. I would like to see more people. Thank you.
You can either raise your hand in the chat, raise hand at the bottom, or you can just unmute yourself.
Yes. Not all at the same time, please. Yes, Sarah.
This is Sarah from you. I'm so happy Manuel is back. I think it's telling me almost counterintuitively that absolutely no one is unique, specifically because we are all entirely unique. We're all the same in that way.
What you're saying, Sarah, which I think that is one of the purposes of poetry, you know. The good thing about being unique is that we are all individuals. But the good thing about non being unique is that we are not alone. We all share this communality that becomes a community. I do believe that poetry, in a world like today's world, where everything is individualized, even your ringtone, where everybody wants to be completely different, and individuality is this thing that we're pursuing, it is important that poetry reminds us how much we have in common with others and how much we are connected with others. You know, I love the idea that we celebrate our differences and we say, these people and that people, they celebrate differently, they love differently, and etc. But we cannot focus only on the differences. If we focus in the fact that we eat differently, we may forget that we all feel hunger. And that hunger is what makes us whole, is what unites us. And that is the part that this poem does both things. It reminds us that we are all unique, but also that we're not alone. It is important that we know that we're not alone. Poetry doesn't let you be alone. That is what it is. Oh, Wade says it's kind of poking at hierarchy and what is real. Yes. Yes, Wade, I do believe so. She and Wislawa Szymborska is really intelligent. She does that a lot of times in her poems. She takes a truth that is very respected and she treats it very lightly. She is like contradicting the concept of death, but her tone is not a very formal, academic tone. She's being very light about it. For example, when she talks about the sun in another poet, she calls it a little star. Under a little star. And that little star is the sun. Christine, you wanted to talk. A very playful approach, yes.
Hi, Manuel. I want to say when you were reading the poem out loud, the line that felt like so provocative to me was, what if I prompted only fear, loathing, or pity? And that line, like, somehow named like my biggest fear and also probably all of like there's a connection point for humanity that names the fear, and somehow that naming made me all the more want to write in a way that creates amazement, not just or only or those things. That line really, I don't know, it like made me feel sad, like it hurt my heart. So I just want to say, like, yes, I telling me amazement is amazement didn't hit me as hard as the opposite hit me in the
Yes.
poem. Yeah, it was like a
Especially
wake-up call.
there is the human experience of making other feel these feelings. People that only provokes pity or fear or etc. in others. Gail, before in a few minutes we're gonna start writing. But I want to hear Gail before we continue. Thank you, Christine.
Hi, thank you. Well, a little bit like the comment about hierarchy, but I was thinking the two things that stand out for me, though there's a lot more in the poem, is a sense of humility, and gratitude. So I guess that's the main thing I wanted to say.
Yes, and I think that the sense of humility comes because I have thought about this poem a lot. I think that it comes from a conception of humanity where humans are among nature and not above nature, which is a very Eastern way of looking at nature. In the Western world, especially in Western religions, humans are above and they name and they own nature. But in Eastern religious and spiritual traditions, humans are part of the woven nature of nature itself. So that makes whoever speaks understand its place in the in the in cosmos. So that humility of Wislawa Szymborska comes from the amazement of the natural world. When she talks about a school of fish, when she talks even about ants, about small things, she is not looking at them from above, but very horizontally. And that is, I think that is very beautiful. And you, as a reader, we almost inadvertently take that approach because her speech is so soft. She takes us, and this playfulness in her speech, that Wade was saying is very convincing. It takes us. Yes, Patrick is saying among is an operative wording here. So she's not saying in the multitudes on the like she's among, like among nature, like we are in the middle, we are there, and it's beautiful. So now, no pressure, but I hope you all write a poem like Wislawa's, like Szymborska's. Um, we have the writing prompt, and the writing prompt is, what are the different multitudes in your life? The groups that you are part of or you call their own. That group can be as small as, your house, etc., or as big as the whole world. Write a poem celebrating a group or multitude of your choosing. List, if you want, people or places, or name a multitude that you are part of. A group and it can be a group of people that are, maybe is all musicians in history, if you are a musician, like that multitude of people that have passed or that I will never met. It can be the multitude of actors or poets or mathematicians or teachers, or maybe it is the irises in the Yucatan Peninsula. It's my family in Mexico. I don't know. You choose your multitude and talk about it and talk about yourself. We're gonna write for about 10 minutes, and then we will come back to share
Yeah.
our
I'll
findings.
keep the timer. We'll come back around 3:45-ish. So
Okay.
enjoy writing, everyone. If everyone could kind of close your final thoughts that you're writing right now. I think we're going to transition into our sharing portion of the meeting. And Manuel, would you like to call out anybody that's interested in sharing?
We asked everybody to raise their hand.
Yeah, and if you're interested in sharing, like our reflection, just feel free to raise your hand via the emoting icon.
I think it'll be easier if you want to share. Please write your name on the chat, and I will just follow that cue.
Just tell them we have a couple of hands raised.
We have Wade.
Oh, well, we have hands. Never mind then.
Is this me? Yes. Tell me your name, as if a name contains a beginning or an entrance. What is this called? Walking through the garden plot, I'm jealous of Jenny. She knows the Latin names assigned by petty lords, encoded with supposed lineage, recorded in books, made static. I like to imagine each flower has a secret name, not rose or peony or even older ranunculus, but leaf shape, stem bend, petal bruise, heat wilt, all at once but clear. Each name unique and very much the opposite of container. The closest translation simply a feeling, a lived interaction with no need for introduction or benediction.
That's a gorgeous poem. That was gorgeous. Petal Bruce, yeah. Sarah?
Thank you. I share with every other animal a drive towards other animals, a lust for food, yen for shelter, the need for rest. I share with plants the will to live, a desire to exist in community, techniques for drawing closer to anyone who wishes me well. I share something with everything that is alive in this world, at least one cell. I share with mountains an appreciation for time, moments of grand stillness, awe. I share with the universe a sense of being small sometimes, of being one in a gazillion, continuing on anyways. Who in existence today is truly alone? Who is not part of an interdependent web of existence? Thank you.
Jenny, Manuel, I think you had your mic muted.
Oh, I said that those questions at the end of your poem, Sarah, are very important. You know, who isn't, you know. And then Mervyn, if you want to share.
Hello. I'm probably going to read a lot more of that author. I truly love that poem. I am happy in my wholeness, how I belt out to laugh. When things, the social painting, deeply dark, doesn't seem quite right. I beat my chest at my ethics, a champagne flute, frail, held to the sun for its prism, an existence of inclusion gathered. My pattern is sewn only as signals crocheted in borders where the sun dances, where the little star hides, where rivers touched, wraps my breaths. I ponder if and why, at the dawn of each naked city, each blanketed, covered soul, each trail of trees to wear. I cry more often at children, unable to find words, drafting images, stealing thoughts away. I cry at meeting my emotions without the mirror of my past. I did not select my bloodstream, those bathed in the skin I now wear. But in the valley, they tread with me, hearing their echoes in the wind somewhere.
Thank you for your deep and brave poem, but also for the passion with which you read it. Reverend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny, would you like to share?
Yeah, thank you. March 2020 to 2025, we came together to separate from touch, flying microparticles caught in homemade masks. We built relationship from glowing screens that we experienced in stillness. Our bodies grew weaker, bending like tulips in a vase, heads lowering over phone screens looking for expansion only to feel locked in. For all who died, for all who lost, we feel collectively but not consciously. We cannot accept our cocoons did not release, beautiful butterfly wings, whose wings flutter lifting each other. Instead, we walk again together, separate and alone, unsure of what it is to be connected.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It is impossible, even when we're talking about multitudes, it is impossible to not be very personal in these poems, right? Because when we declare that we are a part of something, then we are declaring who we are. So even though we're talking about a multitude, it is impossible to not make a confession of self when writing these poems, you know. But then, is it possible to write a poem without a confession of self at all? You know, Elena.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all. And Manuel, thank you for the poem and the prompt. I love Szymborska. I bought her book not knowing anything about her, but I just opened the page, and I was convinced. I was converted. Here we go. Two daffodils blooming on the edge of the property. Our home, the earth, supported by a low stone wall. I am steps away from the bus stop, minutes away from boarding. These are my people, yellow trumpets, such small early risers fitted with crowns. I am embodied by deep yellow, by the green shafts, holding up this royalty of early spring. This early spring by a garden I can breathe in. By the importance of dirt, I board the bus with a heavy heart. You will return to us, even if we are in the ground. My sigh is universal. As we pull away from these beauties made royal by our encounter, and really the only kings I dare to honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to say, I am not used to having so many good writers in, in a gathering like this. Like, the fact that you guys are writing these things in 10 minutes, it's a little ridiculous. But I'm very thankful. Speaking of amazement, I am amazed right now among this multitude of poets. I am very amazed and very, very thankful, Elena, for you making us think about the importance of dirt. And I was not expecting a poem to start by naming to daffodils by naming the non-human, and several of your poems did that. Your multitude goes beyond humankind. You know, that my multitude are other things too. We have just a couple of minutes, so we're gonna hear Stephen, and then we will read the poem to close, and we will read the poem twice. Now, we will have someone, not me, reading it again in English, and I'll read it in Spanish, which is the poem which I read it for the first time.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to be here. I am here, born, immigrant, tall, tearful, strong, preoccupied, dancer, rollerblader, climber, sunseeker, star watcher, yogi, poet, human.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Julie Clear just dropped a beautiful anecdote in the chat, if you guys haven't read it, that she was in Krakow in the time when Szymborska won the Nobel Prize, which is 1997, I guess, I think.
It was 1996. And
Oh.
she was supposed to come speak to our class, but she couldn't because she had just returned from winning the Nobel and she was down with a cold. So Czesław Miłosz came and spoke to us instead, who's another very famous Polish writer and poet. But it was just, and there was a multitude in that sense of just, there was this
absolutely
collective sigh where the Polish people just felt so proud in that moment for her, because she's such a warrior in all of her quiet ways. So yeah, it was a great choice of a poem, Manuel. I'm so glad you chose her.
I don't know if this happens in many cities with many people, but I've been in Krakow a couple of times. And maybe because I am going there for poetry things, like I go to a restaurant and they tell me this used to be the favorite restaurant of Wislawa Szymborska, and then I go to a bar and they tell me this was the favorite bar, and then you're like, I've sat on her favorite chair, which are like 3 different chairs. I've been to her favorite bar, which are like 6 different bars. I've been to her favorite library, which are like 5 libraries. Like just in La Habana, in Cuba, the same happens with Hemingway. Everywhere you go is the hotel where he used to be. Everywhere you eat is the place where he used to eat, and it is like that a little bit with Szymborska. I cannot tell you how happy I am.
I'll just read off a couple announcements, and then we'll finish with reading the poems. So we're going to meet again next week, same time, so April 9th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be joined by Christine, who's in the chat right now, and longtime collaborator Julia Obianco will be facilitating as well. Another note, if you would like to be edited out of this session, please feel free to email me, patrick@thewell.world. And submissions have been opened early for the poetry compilation. So if you're interested in submitting whatever you've written today, it's on our website, and we'll follow up again with a link to that. So, yeah.
And I just wanted to clarify, Manuel, because I know you're going to read us out in English, and Stephen has offered to read the Spanish version.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So I think without further ado, we'll do, what order would you like? English, and then we'll say goodbye to one another after Spanish?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start with you, Manuel.
All right.
Among the multitudes, I am who I am, a coincidence not less unthinkable than any other. I could have different ancestors, after all. I could have fluttered from another nest or crawled, be scaled from another tree. Nature's wardrobe holds a fair supply of costumes: spider, seagull, field mouse. Each fits perfectly right off and is dutifully worn into shreds. I didn't get a choice either, but I can't complain. I could have been someone much less separate, someone from an anthill, shoal, a buzzing swarm, an inch of landscape ruffled by the wind. Someone much less fortunate, bread for my fur or Christmas dinner, something swimming under a square of glass, a tree rooted to the ground as the fire draws near, a grass blade trampled by a stampede of incomprehensible events, a shady type whose darkness dazzles some. What if I prompted only fear, loathing, or pity? If I've been born in the wrong tribe with all roads closed before me, faith has been kind to me thus far. I might never have been given the memory of happy moments. My yen for comparison may have been taken away. I might have been myself minus amazement. That is, someone completely different. What a poem.
Una del montón. Soy la que soy, casualidad inconcebible, como todas las casualidades. Otros antepasados podrían haber sido los míos, y yo habría abandonado otro nido, o me habría arrastrado cubierta de escamas debajo de algún árbol. En el vestuario de la naturaleza hay muchos trajes. Traje de araña, de gaviota, de ratón de monte. Cada uno, como hecho a la medida, se lleva dócilmente hasta que se hace tiras. Yo tampoco he elegido, pero no me quejo. Pude haber sido alguien mucho menos individuo. Parte de un banco de peces, de un hormiguero, de un enjambre, partícula del paisaje sacudida por el viento. Alguien mucho menos feliz, criado para un abrigo de pieles o para una mesa navideña, algo que se mueve debajo de un cristal de microscopio. Árbol clavado en la tierra al que se aproxima un incendio. Hierba arrollada por el correr de incomprensibles sucesos. Un tipo de mala estrella que para algunos brilla. Y si despertara miedo en la gente, o solo asco, o solo compasión, y si hubiera nacido no solo en la tribu de vida, y se cerraran ante mí los caminos, el destino hasta ahora ha sido benévolo conmigo. Pudo no haberme sido dado recordar buenos momentos. Se me pudo haber privado de la tendencia a comparar. Pude haber sido yo misma, pero sin que me sorprendiera, lo que habría significado que ser alguien completamente diferente.
Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you all for joining. Much love. Much love. Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Hope to see you soon.
Adios.
Adios.